Hello my darlings and welcome to a new prize reading vlog. This time we're doing the Aurealis Awards. The Aurealis Awards are for Australian fantasy, sci-fi and horror fiction. They have already announced the winners, so I just stumbled across this award recently. So I decided I'll read the winners, which to be honest I think is a better way of doing these award vlogs. For the ones that have multiple categories, I just read from the categories that my library had books in. So we had Best Fantasy Novella, and this went to Cinder by Freya Marske. I've talked about this book at length. To sum it up quickly, it's a Cinderella retelling where the stepmother kills Cinderella. Cinderella is now a ghost haunting the home. She's still being forced to do slave labor until she meets a fairy godmother and a kinky prince. I gave that book a 3 stars. Then we have Best Fantasy Novel. So this went to Upon a Starlit Tide by Kell. This combines elements of The Little Mermaid and Cinderella, but it's set in St. Malo, Brittany in 1758. And our main character, Luce, is the daughter of a wealthy merchant. And one day she saves a drowning man from the sea, and she's immediately drawn in by his charm, but she is subsequently plunged into this world of fairy magic, seduction and brutality, and is this prince as charming as he seems to be. I gave that one a 4.5 stars. I really liked it. It was historical. It was a bit more slow paced, but I enjoyed it in the end. 4.5 stars. So the next category is Best Horror Novel, and the winner was Orpheus 9 by Flynn. So I did start reading that for this vlog. So it's set in Australia, and one day there's this global event where all children aged 9 immediately stop what they're doing. They recite King Lear, I think it was, in Latin, and then they die from sodium overdose. And it is global. And now every parent is in fear of any subsequent children turning 9. Is it going to happen to them as well? It's a very cool premise. Unfortunately, the execution just wasn't for me. The writing style wasn't for me. I wasn't enjoying it. It got really dull and not interesting, so I DNF'd the Best Horror winner. I also didn't find it very horrifying. I do feel like the book that wins a horror category has to have some horrific moments in it. Doesn't matter what type of horror it is, but I do feel like you have to have that fear at some point. Then we've got Best Anthology, and the winner of this was Austral 2025 by Matt Richardson, Michaela Teschendorf and Sia Fairchair. They're the editors. So this is a collection of short stories. It's printed on glossy paper, which reminded me of school textbooks, and it does have some illustrations. I'm just going to go through the stories very quickly. My overall rating for this anthology was a 3. So we've got Incarcerization by Luke Weevil. I gave this 3.5. It's about the unrealistic and exorbitant cost of living down under in Australia and how some people are turning to becoming crabs to kind of escape it. The Sun Takes One by Sage Hunter. This is about, I think it was a South American tribe, I'm not sure, but their rituals, and I gave this a 2. Robot Wife by William Rota. This was my favorite of this collection and I gave it a 4.25. In this one, a woman goes to space and she dies, and the company uploads her consciousness into the body of a robot, and it's about her and her husband trying to sort of find a new normal and go on with their lives, but then there's a twist, something else happens. This was the most interesting and thought-provoking for me. We've then got The Bone Charmer by Michaela Teschendorf Harden. I gave this a 3.5, and in this one, people use the bones of their dead loved ones to extend their life, and this woman is the one that is tasked with doing the ritual that does this. But the bones can only be used if they were donated willingly by the person who died. Then we've got A Vision of Wheat by Jason Shembry. Oh, I gave that one a 3.5. We've got A Vision of Wheat by Jason Shembry, which I gave 2 stars. This is about oracles who can see their clients' futures. We've got Breakwater by M. McClellan. I gave this a 3. In this one, sea monsters make repeat occurrences. It's a common phenomenon now for sea monsters to come out of the deep. We've got Over and Out by Caleb E. Whitaker, which I gave 2. This is about an astronaut in space logging comets. I've got Akiri for Eomas by Arden Baker, which I gave a 2.5. This is about a scribe who is recording war battles and ends up falling for a soldier, so it is gay. We've got Deja Vécu by T.R. Napa, which I gave a 3.75. And this is kind of like Inception. And in this one, people sell memories of their lives and other people can download them into their consciousness. And this woman has her husband who thinks that he's living the life of this famous author who knows the future. Overall, a lot of the stories are about death, grief, and loss. We've then got Best Children's Fiction, and this was Little Bones by Sandy Bigna. I don't really rate children's fiction because I'm not the intended audience, but like I would give it a 4.5 stars. This is about a really sad, weird kid who is obsessed with bones, who then accidentally resurrects a dead bird and then has to find a way to lay it to rest before the next full moon, along with the grief of having lost her brother. It is written in verse. There are a lot of metaphors about birds. This is heavily about grief and the sort of emotional shutdown and trauma that this child has experienced and is working through. There's a lot of loneliness. She has been left behind by her brother. She's been left behind by her mother, who in her grief has taken an off-site work on an oil rig or in the mines. I think it was in the mines, and is never home. She's obviously outrunning the grief of losing her child under the guise of, I'm trying to provide a better future for us, because they live in commission housing. So there's also a lot about class divides as well in this book. But she's also been left behind by her best friend, who, when she discovered her fascination with, I guess, bones, thought she was weird and made friends with another girl who is a bully. But our main character also did shut down and push people out because of the loss of her brother. She then ends up making a new friend in a character named Tenny, who I think is non-binary, but is just very accepting of her and her weird obsessions and interests. I was reminded a lot of my best friend, because my best friend also collects animal bones, and it's something I found out very early too. Like I was also 11 years old when I met her, and I just accepted it. We just accepted each other's weirdness. The book is a lot about death and decay and the beauty of it, and of learning how to say goodbye. So once she resurrects this bird, because she's been left by everyone that she loves, she does not want to let it go, even though the bird states, this isn't natural. I don't want to be here. I want to move on. I cannot live my life as a bird. I can't fly. I can't eat. I can't drink. I am a skeleton. You need to let me go. And she's struggling with that. So yeah, it's also about girlhood and growing up. And I just thought it was really well done. It's very easy to consume because it's written in verse. I think it's a great way for young children to look at grief and friendship and loss and growth and trauma, because she did witness her brother's death, and how to move forward without forgetting. So very well done for a children's fiction. And then we've got 2 more that I am going to be reading, because my library does have them. So we've got the best young adult novel, best YA novel, The Serpent Called Mercy by Roanne Lau. And then we've got the best sci-fi, which is Wastelands by Samira Lloyd. So I've got Wastelands right now. So that will be the next book I read. I would have loved to have read one of the graphic novels, but my library doesn't have the winner and doesn't have almost all of the graphic novels. So I've let that category go. But so far, besides Orpheus 9, I have enjoyed everything I've picked up for this award. So this is definitely one I'm going to look at in the future when they do their long lists as well. But like I said, I think it's with these awards that have multiple categories of, 3 or more books, it might just be more beneficial to do a dedicated blog for reading the winners, but also just add the other books that interest me to my TBR. But I will touch base with you once I have read some more books.
What are you doing? I love you.
Hello darlings, I am back with an update. So I did end up trying Wastelands by Samira Lloyd. So this is about a girlie who is living in this very sterile dystopian bubble, and she is secretly psychic, she's telepathic, which is very illegal in this world. So she's an anomaly, and she ends up hallucinating a plant growing, and she meets a hot rebel, and then they team up and they're all, let's overthrow the fear-based system and hopefully touch some grass for real, because there are no plants in these little dystopian bubbles. I don't see how humans could live without any plant life, but I don't know how that is, because I did DNF this. This was not nominated as a YA. It is not showing up as YA on Goodreads, but believe me when I tell you, this is the most YA book I've ever read. Like, it was immediately YA. As soon as I started reading, I'm like, oh my God, this is a YA dystopian. And I kept pushing through and I thought, is it meant to be YA? And I couldn't see anything to tell me either it was or it wasn't. But for me, this was just not working for me whatsoever. It was just, the writing style wasn't for me. The way it was written, like I said, this very much read like a young YA dystopian book. And I have no desire. If I'm going to do that, I'll read Hunger Games, So I did decide to DNF this one. It wasn't to my taste, which means I have one novel left, which is the YA winner, and that is The Serpent Called Mercy by Roanne. I've just started reading this and I'm not sure how I feel about it. So we've got a down on her luck FMC who's trying to financially provide for her and her friend, and she was working as a bookkeeper for a guy who keeps lightning bees. So this is a magically fantasy world, and he was an absolute cunt and a half and was physically abusing her on the job. And she decides, fuck this small amount of money ain't worth being assaulted for on a daily basis. So she decides to provide for the fam by stealing from the rich, and she's a pretty good pickpocket and thief. So she manages to pay off the debts for another month. They're in debt to a loan shark, the kind that will kill you. So every single month is just a fight to survive and pay off these bad guys. And then lo and behold, the town is asking for volunteers to participate in this kind of gladiator ring where pairs of people fight against these massive mythological killing machine creatures. So her and her buddy are like, we can't continue on this way. Let's just try to get rich quick. Team up. Her buddy happens to be a former undefeated brawling champ, and she herself was trained by her dad to be proficient with spears, and so she's got natural fighting tactical skills. So together, along with her cunning, incredibly intelligent brain, they should win. So we'll see how we go. Like I said, at the moment, I'm not particularly invested. It reminds me a little bit of, is it Poison Steeped in Tea? I don't know. Look, I'll put the actual book that I'm thinking of on here. It's giving these kind of vibes. So we'll see how we go. I'll give it a decent amount because it is a fantasy, and sometimes you just have to get through the first 100 pages to get your feet, get your bearing, and to get into the rhythm. So I'll give it 100 pages, but it's also YA, which I don't always love. So we'll see how we go. This is the final book for this Aurealis vlog, and then I'll give you my overall opinions and thoughts.
And who's here? Hello, darling.
Okay guys, I'm here to quickly wrap this up. My heater's broken, so I need to call a repairman to come fix it. And the house is cold as tits. I was reading the YA novel The Serpent Called Mercy by Roanne. Look, it's just not for me. It's very much like a gladiator style in which our two protagonists have to enter the arena to kill these beasts. But the beasts to me feel like animals. I'm like, did they consent to competing in this battle to the death game? Probably not. So I got very upset every time. Like, I wanted them to live, but I also didn't want them to kill an animal, as ferocious as it might be.
Goes from under the house.
Under? Okay. That's my daddy. My daddy's trying to see if he can fix it without me having to call the technician out first, so pray for me. So yeah, I did decide to DNF it. Just wasn't for me. So let's have a look at this Aurealis awards vlog. So best fantasy novella, Cinder House, 3 stars. That means I liked it. So, that's great. Best fantasy was Upon a Starlit Tide, which I gave 4.5 stars. That's an excellent rating for me. So yeah, I agree with that one. Best horror novel, Orpheus 9, was a DNF. So we didn't agree in that aspect. Best anthology, Austral, 2025. This got an overall 3-star rating for me. It was a collection of stories, which is still it's decent. YA, The Serpent Called Mercy, I did DNF, but I'm not the right demographic for that. Best Sci-Fi, Wastelands, Samira, Lloyd, was a DNF. It felt like a YA novel. I'm actually quite shocked that this dystopian was the best sci-fi novel. Maybe we don't have a lot of Australian sci-fi writers, I'm not sure. But the best children's fiction, Little Bones by Sandy Bigna, was a 4.5 to me. So another great book. Overall, I will be checking out the Aurealis awards every year, and I might do a read the winners again, or like I said, I'll look at each categories once the long list is announced to see if there's a category that I would just rather read all the books in that one for. But this is definitely an award that I am going to do a dedicated vlog to. I think we get along pretty well. Let me know down below if you've read any of the winners of this award and whether you liked it or not. And until next time, stay wild, Star Child.